Girls and guys, anybody, you don't owe somebody something just because they have been vulnerable with you about something hurtful. That's not your problem. You do not have to take care of somebody just because they reveal to you their trauma.
Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
And welcome to Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast where we're not game show hosts, but real human beings who are not happy every day of their lives. It's not really funny, but it's true.
Yeah.
And it won't make sense unless you're very familiar with the script of the movie that we're going to watch today.
Yeah, like I just watched, part of it last night and the other part this morning, and I'm still like, that sounds vaguely familiar, but I can't even place it. Oh, and I'm Lauren.
Oh, I'm Christina, and you probably have no idea what we're talking about.
But you will.
Normally, we show up on this podcast and we talk about our lives and we pick a mental health topic to analyze, if you will. But sometimes we just don't have the spoons for that.
I mean, I've seen this movie before. We're doing a movie review, by the way. But I feel like it really focused on, it kind of lent itself to a mental health topic.
I have so many feelings about this movie. And I know I say that every time, but this movie really disturbed me.
Well, I think it should.
Well, yeah. It was kind of hard to watch. We need to save this kind of movie talk for when Orion gets here. Spoiler alert, Orion is joining us today as our special guest, and he actually picked this movie.
Yeah. When we were saying sometimes we pick a topic and discuss it, I was going to say, and sometimes we have guests, and this time we kind of have both.
Yeah, this is the first time that we've done a movie review with a guest. Who knows where this will lead?
Especially, I want to know why he picked this.
I want to know why he picked this. Can we talk about the fact that we're recording this on Thanksgiving Day?
Absolutely.
Oh my God, we have 10 minutes till Orion gets here. Housekeeping. Our 5-year anniversary is coming up. When this comes out on Monday, you will have 4 days to send in any stories or feedback, I guess.
Favorite memories of us.
Yeah, tell us why you listen, how the podcast has changed your life.
Yeah, did it ever make you think? I don't know.
How did we cure your depression? Please tell us.
We assume that we have successfully cured all of you of your mental illness, so please tell us how we did it.
Well, we took it all on ourselves, I think.
Oh, okay.
That's how it works.
Right.
We cure your depression, we become depressed instead.
More so, yes.
So yeah, next week we'll be doing some sort of 5-year anniversary extravaganza. And then we have the interview with Unfocused Writers coming up too. I'm trying to schedule something for early December with them.
I'm very excited about this.
Me too. I feel like I'm faking the excitement right now, but I really am excited. Is it healthy that this podcast is now effectively my therapy?
Our therapy.
Let's keep joking about the dark stuff because that makes me feel better.
Okay. It's a holiday. You're supposed to enjoy yourself, right? And it's by joking about everything that's fucked up.
I guess. I don't feel good about this holiday, though, for obvious reasons.
I don't know. I feel like at this point, everybody knows what's wrong with this holiday. And if you don't agree, then you don't agree. And I'm not going to change your mind.
So how do you let it go, though?
Knowing that it's not my job to teach everybody history. If you don't want to listen, then you don't want to listen. That's not my job. I am glad that I understand.
Yeah, it sucks deconstructing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It really sucks. I wish I didn't have to. I wish I could just, I don't know, go through life like other people. I'm trying to feel my feelings or sit with my feelings, but it's hard.
I mean, good for you, but I know that's never that sounds so fun.
Yeah, it's not fun.
No.
Nothing about what I'm going through these days is fun, but I'm hoping that it will result in growth.
It's a good way to look at it.
I guess.
It's kind of the best you can hope for. I'm being depressing too now.
No, it's
Sorry.
spreading.
Your therapist is depressing you.
Does that mean I won therapy if I made my therapist depressed?
Maybe not, because your therapist isn't actually a therapist and is already depressed.
Oh, that's a very good point, actually. I should probably find a different therapist. I really should, though, for real.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening and they're like, why don't you just see a therapist? I'm working on it. Or at least I'm thinking about working on it.
Yeah.
Orion says, Riverside needed an update. I'm trying again.
Okay.
We've been doing this for... Oh, my God.
Hello. Oh my God, my camera's on. Don't look. Okay.
My headphones just flew off of my ears.
Just like the force of explosion.
Basically.
Oh, it's nice to see you guys.
Okay, so we are here with Orion, the one and only, to talk about a movie.
Wait, can I do a tagline? I have one for...
Yes!
Oh my God, okay, go.
Hi, welcome to Pickles and Vodka. No.
See, welcome. This is what I go through. This is what we go through every week.
Okay, give me a 3, 2, 1.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Pickles and Vodka, the podcast where bulimia is so 87. Do you like that?
I love it.
So much better than the one I was trying to do before you got on.
What was it? What was it?
You can listen and find out.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. You're right.
But yeah, if you haven't gathered, we are talking about Heathers today. Orion, it was your idea. And I think both of us are wondering, why did you pick this movie?
And just quick, so everybody gets in the vibe in case they haven't seen it. This is a movie from 1988 and starring Winona Ryder and Christian Slater.
It is a dark comedy about the life of a small town teenager and the surreal world of bullying and mental health and families and
Murder.
just life.
Yeah.
Just life and murder. It's like the most simultaneously unrelatable material, but so relatable in like every emotional way. This movie was really big to me. I watched it as a teenager, and rewatching it again, I realized how much it got me through a lot of stuff I was going through at the time. Even though what I was going through was not murder, but we'll talk about it.
But there is a lot of just straight out bullying, which I feel like anyone can relate to.
Yeah. And situations with families, manipulators, society. I hope that you both found something relatable as well. And I can't wait to hear about it.
Lauren, what about you? What's your connection to this movie?
I was telling Christina earlier that my brother, who is 6.5 years older than me, this kind of became him and his friends' like de facto cult movie. So I remember seeing it when I was young, because I would have been like 7 or 8 years old when it came out. And I would see like bits and pieces of it because they were always watching it. And then I've probably seen it all the way through a few times myself. I'm sure just out of like curiosity, seeing them watching it all the time. Then once I was old enough to properly digest it.
No pun intended.
I know. I was just looking at one of the quotes I wrote down, which relates to that. But then I watched it, and I watched it with some friends recently, maybe like 4 years ago.
And I have never seen it. And I kind of knew it was about teenage girls who kind of had a frenemy situation going on, and there was murder involved, and there was a bad boy. But I had no idea it would be as dark as it was. I had no idea it was basically a social commentary on teen suicide. And it's kind of like a parody.
Don't do it. Love that song.
Yep. Big fun.
We should probably say right off the bat that there is a lot of suicide talk. It's unavoidable with this movie.
That's pretty much the focus of the whole movie.
Material that's never been covered on this podcast.
Right.
Well, that's interesting. This is one of those movies that has had such a cultural legacy in the way that you've probably seen many other things more recently that have been like inspired or have their roots in Heathers.
I'm sure.
I'm thinking about Mean Girls. There was a Heathers TV show. Yeah, just a lot of like teenhood stuff that like kind of has a watered down kind of aesthetic of Heathers. This movie really broke ground in a lot of ways, I think, that we can see in other things. But this is the original.
Yeah, I reminded myself a lot of times when I was watching this and like making the connections. I was like, remember, this was in 1988.
When he brings the gun to school.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this was 10 years before Columbine.
Right.
Yeah. So, Orion, you brought us this movie. And so I kind of want to give you the reins as far as what direction you want this conversation to go in. Like, we could maybe go over the plot and just do it like scene by scene if you want, or you could just, if there's any bigger topics you want to touch on, take us away.
Well, I think I have like a takeaway that really stood out for me from this movie was Veronica's kind of character arc and how her, like the core of her character kind of comes out throughout the movie, throughout what they're doing. But I also have a whole bunch of plot notes about what to go through, sort of like beat by beat. And then we can like bring up what we each individually found.
Perfect.
So past the opening scene, which is kind of like that surreal croquet thing. We get into Veronica writing in her diary. There is like the narration, but it's like Veronica writing in her diary, which I really like in a movie.
Same.
Because it kind of like gets you.
One of my first notes is Veronica's writing is fucking huge.
Yeah.
She has like 3 lines per page.
You know she's rich when she can afford to write that big in her notebooks.
Right.
My first note is croquet. What is it? Do rich people still play this?
Oh yeah, I also have yellow leggings and yellow socks.
The monochromatic fashions.
Oh my god! And then Veronica's writing in her diary. She wears a monocle.
I have that too.
I have that on my notes. What the fuck? A monocle? Is this?
Yeah, mine says.
What a queen!
A monocle, Veronica? Really?
I'm pretty sure we said that verbatim. I watched half of this with 3 of my sisters, and we only got 40 minutes in, and then the rest I watched by myself this morning. But yeah, there was a lot of like outraged screaming at many points, mostly because of the men in this movie.
Oof.
Oh, the men. But the fashion.
Let's focus on the real issues.
Yeah, I was telling Christina that, because she asked, like, is this accurate? And I said some yes. I would say the hairstyles and the shoulder pads. Those were real.
But I want to talk more about the opening scenes, like how we're introduced to all these characters. Because you open, and like Orion said, there's a croquet scene, and it's these blonde girls all playing croquet. They all look pretty much identical. And these are the titular Heathers.
It's clearly like a kind of dream sequence sort of scene.
So it's these 3 teenage girls who are very popular in the school. They're all named Heather.
Yeah.
It's so fun. There's Heather, 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 and Veronica. One Heather is yellow. They all have last names, but I just call them like yellow, red, and green.
Yellow, red, and bulimia Heather.
I just called her Brenda.
Yes. Oh, she's a Brenda. But yeah, and then Veronica wears blue. Back to the plot. Basically, Veronica was a nerd or whatever. She hung out with the uncool kids, which means she had real friends.
Yeah.
And then she got adopted into this group of popular girls who are mean, but they made her popular. I don't know what that means. I didn't go to public school.
Yeah, me neither.
So this is my whole perspective on it. But like basically you wanted to get in with the popular kids, and then they are bitches. They are mean. One of the first things they do is they decide to bully the fat girl at school by writing a note from the most disgusting jock in the entire world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My note just says the boys are disgusting.
Yeah, beyond disgusting. It's like a caricature of men at the time, but the reason it infuriates me is so much is because I know this is a really prevalent attitude in media from that time. You want to laugh at it, but you know that this was actually being celebrated and like encouraged and amplified.
Yeah.
It just disturbed me a lot.
I will say, as the only one of us who went to public school around this time, I feel like it is a slightly exaggerated view on the girls' front. I don't feel like the guys were like that at all, because I don't think the guys were that capable, basically. Like, that is what the guys were aspiring to. They probably would have seen that and thought those were like super cool guys.
Well, yeah, because they saw it in movies.
Exactly. But I mean, that wasn't actually happening in high school, because no teenage boy really had that much, like, they couldn't handle being that big of an asshole. I mean, they were assholes, but in other ways.
Yeah, everyone laughs at the prank, and you notice that there's a new student in the background kind of watching everything go down and disapproving. And this is Christian Slater's character.
Yep. Looking like he's from The Matrix.
Yeah. Orion, what are your thoughts on his entrance?
He's cute.
Thank you.
Really?
He's cute.
Like, so many people, especially in this time, I think, you know, they used a lot of people like in their late 20s to play high school students. I happened to notice this time, I was like, you know what? He looks age appropriate in this movie. And by just seeing him, I would have been attracted to him in high school. I can tell.
I am shook. I don't know how to react to this.
I mean, then he opened his mouth and I wouldn't have been. But
well, yeah,
just seeing him, I'm like, yep, that would have been my type in high school. I can see it.
When I first watched this movie when I was young, Winona Ryder was part of my lesbian awakening. And then I guess Christian Slater in this movie, I was like, maybe I am bi. And to this day, I identify as bisexual, and I still stand by okay, you're introduced to this high school and everyone is gross and yucky teenagers. Everyone is mean. And then this new guy comes in and he's not like the other kids. He's different. He's from out of town. He's cute looking and he's charming in comparison to the disgusting animals we see.
Yeah.
Because they're doing this lunchtime poll where you get to go around and meet different types of students and ask them a very stupid question about aliens. The question is stupid. The answers are stupider. It's really funny when they get to the stoners and stuff and they just, the answers are progressively stupider.
Yeah.
And then there's just this guy who's just like, oh, that's a stupid question. And he's, kind of normal and fun. And like, if you're Veronica, that's the anchor. Like, oh, I finally found somebody who's real and feels like me and isn't acting like all these other kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's that immediate like bond there. Like, you are the only choice that I have in this moment. And you're able to overlook any red flags from that point. But from this point, there are no red flags yet.
Yeah.
Until the next scene where the jock boys decide to go pick on him, call him homophobic slurs. They're very homophobic forward. This comes back later. This is a very foreshadowing. But he pulls out a gun, a real gun, shoots fake blanks at them.
But you don't know that they're fake until the next scene.
No, you just see him holding the gun and bang, bang.
And again, 10 years before Columbine, they're immediately like, they should throw him in jail. Nah.
I know, they're like, it was just blanks. They won't care.
Yeah, it cuts to all the girls playing croquet after school, and they're all talking about it. And they're kind of divided. Some of them think it's a big deal, he should be in jail, and others are just like, whatever.
Yeah, he didn't hurt anyone, so it's fine.
But you can tell that Veronica is kind of intrigued by him.
Because she wants an escape from this, whatever she's got going on. Because in that scene, Yellow Heather is like really dogging on Green Heather. She's so fucking mean. She's so evil.
Oh, God, yes.
Fuck me gently with a chainsaw.
I use that phrase regularly. I just had to point out.
Also in that scene, we meet her parents, Veronica's parents. And what's funny about their relationship is so scripted.
Yeah.
Like, they have like a script. Oh, come sit down. Oh, because you're an idiot, Dad. You too. It's so scripted in the way that families do not intimately talk to one another. Veronica's playing the character of this good girl.
Yeah, I found the scenes with her parents really familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Because in past weeks, I've been feeling like I can't be myself around my parents. I know what it's like to just have everything be cordial and maybe lighthearted on the outside, but you're just slowly growing crazier and crazier on the inside, and your parents don't know about it.
Yeah.
I get the sense with Veronica that there's a lot building under the surface. Like, even before the major events in this movie take place, you kind of get the sense that she's dissatisfied. She's looking for an escape.
Yeah, I don't think she feels connected to her family at all. I feel like maybe she was hoping to find some connection getting into the popular crew and learned pretty quickly that's not going to do it. They're all fake assholes.
And her parents are like, oh, you're friends. You're lovely friends. And she's like, yeah, and we're going to this party later. It's a college party. We're going to have fun. She clearly doesn't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, she clearly, like, this is, as Yellow Heather told her, this is like a litmus test of how you're going to do in the next year. Don't fail me at this party. They stop at a convenience store and she runs into JD again, Jason Dean, Christian Slater.
Yes.
And they have a cute little convenience store date, and she immediately pours her heart out to him. Like, I don't like my friends. Like, it's like we're coworkers and our job is being popular.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
she does not feel connected to these people. She doesn't want to do this. And he's like, well, why go? And she's like, oh, because that's what we do. Like, she doesn't see another way out.
I don't really relate to the bullying stuff because I was homeschooled. I never had to deal with a friend group who was that toxic. But my college experience was more similar to the Heather's experience in that it was a Christian private school. I didn't have a lot in common with anyone. And so I did latch on to the kids who were more similar to me. But now, like, by my standards today, I probably wouldn't hang out with. I actually did go to a few frat parties with them. And the party scene that we're about to go into is actually very accurate. Like, it brought me straight back to that time. Just like being with people I didn't really want to be with, being in a situation that was uncomfortable, feeling like I had to because that's the only way people would accept me.
That makes me very sad because this party scene is so fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I couldn't write notes for all the fucked up things that happen in it. My first note is it's immediately awkward. The way they're just talking.
Yeah.
There's college boys. They're clearly younger girls. They're like whispering to each other, like they just want to have sex with them. And
Also accurate.
yeah, Heather is assaulted by a boy. She clearly doesn't want to have sex with him. And they clearly do something that she later goes into the bathroom to like wash her mouth out and spits water at herself. And I really think that this party frames sexual assault in a very real but very respectful way.
Yeah, that felt realistic.
Yeah, this was one of the first representations I saw of this. And what I would really like to talk a lot about is Veronica's interaction with the boy.
Why don't you recap it real quick?
Veronica goes off by herself to find a place to be alone at the party. Relatable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Me just go sit by the coats. She feels kind of ill. She tries to drink alcohol. I think she set something on fire. And she like throws it out the window and sets the dumpster on fire, which is a really fun set piece that comes back later. But she's sitting on her own, and that boy comes back up to her, college boy, who was like, she was trying to avoid earlier. And he's like, oh, let's have sex here on the coats. And she's like, no, I don't want to. I don't feel good. And he's like, no, come on, let's do it. And she says, no, I've got a speech I like to give my suitor when he wants more than I want to give him. She starts like telling him no. And he's like, no, I don't care. I don't care about your speech.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, you don't deserve my fucking speech. And she leaves.
Yeah,
And
that was great.
That blew my mind.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was like, you can just say no.
Yeah.
You can just leave. You don't even have to explain yourself. What?
Well, and this movie is full of moments like that where some guy is trying to have sex with a girl who's saying no, and they don't respect that. And that's one thing that really bothered me in this movie. But Winona Ryder's character, like, it fights that narrative, which I appreciate.
Yeah, this is a really big theme in her character that I think that in later events in the movie, it really draws a full picture because people like to set this up as, oh, Veronica's just like a follower. She follows the Heathers. She participates in their pranks. She goes to their parties. And she does do those things. But like at her core, you can tell she's really conflicted about it. And her true values start coming out.
I feel like she is starting to learn her strength early on in the movie, and it just, continues throughout it.
And JD really manipulates her.
Yes.
Yes.
If she didn't have such a strong character, she wouldn't have stood up to him in that scary way. Because I, as a teenager, was manipulated by people like this. Mm-hmm. And I was too scared to say anything. But I really think that I also had similar core values. And seeing it in Veronica was really inspiring to me in a way that just like it nestled this little egg deep inside.
Yeah.
You can say no to things you don't believe in. And that's a really core theme of this movie. But anyway, back to the party scene. She escapes that interaction, runs into Heather. She's like, I don't feel good. Can we go home? And Heather laughs at her. Heather's not a good friend.
No.
Heather laughs at her. She is like, well, I allowed myself to get assaulted, so why don't you, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's surprisingly common. Maybe not with like that exact scenario, but I find that people who are being repressed or repressing themselves are often very eager to drag other people into their misery. And if you don't want that, then they get mad at you.
They're basically saying like, well, I've allowed myself to be manipulated, and why don't you? Because if you don't, then I'm going to have to admit that I allowed myself to be manipulated. Where if you also do, then I can say this is just how things are.
I mean, it's a coping mechanism. Like, we have to acknowledge that all of the all of the characters in this movie are human beings, and they're all dealing with a lot of shit. Mm-hmm. And some of them deal with it in a healthy way, and some of them don't. Just like people. You know?
It's our indication that, like, we can see none of the Heathers are really happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, being popular, if you're bullying other people, you're obviously miserable.
Well, yeah, they announced the one Heather's bulimia really pretty early on in the movie, and they kind of treat it flippantly. Like, they tease her about it.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one of my quotes I wrote down. Watch it, Heather. You might be digesting food.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question about that scene. That was earlier in the movie, like in the cafeteria. They're in the bathroom, and the bulimic Heather is like, Veronica, can you come in here and help me?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, do people actually do that?
Not in my experience.
I thought bulimia was kind of like a private thing. Like in the 80s, where they like, hey, can you come shove your finger down my throat?
I don't know. That was kind of my thought too, because I know that we've come a long way in diet culture and eating disorder awareness, but that was my question. Like, was there a time when this was encouraged or just accepted even?
I don't think it was. I think that was part of the movie's dark comedy feel. They know that people don't actually do that, so they were just kind of like putting that on display to just be like, this would be a funny way of looking at it.
That's the way I've always seen the way that Heather's bulimia is framed in this movie. It's very similar to the way of suicide in that no one in the town really knows how to deal with it or how to frame it in like the way we understand it now. So like this is just raw, like, oh yeah, she throws up her food.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So they're leaving the party. Veronica, I guess, and Heather leave the party. They go out to the back and there's this huge dumpster fire from earlier. And they deliver this great dialogue outside this dumpster fire, which I just like in isolation. She goes, "You stupid fuck," Heather says. And Veronica goes, "You goddamn bitch." I'm like, oh, I love R-rated teen movies.
Yes!
Because teens do talk like this.
This scene was the moment where I was like, oh, this is why it's rated R.
Right. Because even though there's a lot of like sexual themes, they don't use it, to like get a lot of nudity in there or anything like that. They use it for the overall themes in the language, I'd imagine.
No, like I watched a lot of other movies from this time period, and there's a lot of like teen boobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just for no real reason. Heather's is all just saying the F word.
Yep.
I love it.
I love it.
But yeah, Heather basically says, Veronica, you're off the team. Like, I'm going to humiliate you at school because you threw up at this party.
Yeah, it's basically just like, here's your warning. Enjoy tonight because tomorrow you're out. You're dead.
Yep, just wait till Monday.
Yep.
So Veronica goes home and writes angrily in her diary about like how killing Heather would be great, which is just something you write.
Yeah.
Something you think about when you're young. Like, I wish you would just die.
Yeah.
The world would be better. She also makes the note that on Monday she's going to be kissing up Heather because she doesn't want to be socially ostracized at school. And that also
she's
makes
seen
sense.
what happens to everyone else.
Yeah.
I do this all the time where I have a moment of clarity where I know what I want and what I need to do. And it feels good in that moment. And I tell myself everything will change. But really, if I'm being honest, I know that things are just going to go back to the way they were because my past patterns have showed that that's what I do. So yeah, I could really relate to her when she was like, I want out. I want to kill her. Like, this is so maddening, but I'll probably just go back to being a kiss up on Monday.
Because like at the end of the day, she still is trapped at the school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Until who crawls it through her window.
Oh my God. I couldn't believe that he had the audacity.
Also, how does he know where she lives?
Yeah, they never explain that.
He goes in their window. They go out and they play some strip croquet on the lawn, too. And they allegedly have sex.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think people are like, oh, they have sex on the lawn. How awful. What do you mean awful? She didn't want to have sex with the other guy. She fully consented to this. And I think that's great. I think the sex positivity towards her is great. That, like, the movie itself, the narrative is not slut-shaming her for being with this guy that she actually chose to be with. And I think that is very positive for her character at this moment. That's what she needed, was that feeling of agency.
I love how this movie doesn't waste time. It's just like she decides she's attracted to him in that moment. And yeah, I want to have sex.
And she doesn't go back later and regret that, I don't think.
No, we don't see any of that. She just realizes you're a horrible person and I got to take care of you now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the moment, their pillow talk is talking shit about Heather, and they decide to go pay her a visit in the morning. So they go into Heather's house because she just doesn't lock her door. Her parents aren't home. Small town things. They decide to whip up a little hangover cure, something gross that will make her throw up.
Yeah.
Veronica's like, let's do milk and orange juice. And JD's like, pussy shit. Let's give her drain cleaner.
Yeah.
Because he immediately takes it to 11. And she's like, haha, this is a joke. Because that would, make sense as a joke. Why would you think this guy was serious?
Yeah.
But then she accidentally takes his cup full of drain cleaner up to Heather. And he notices but doesn't stop it.
They have put a cover on the one that has the drain cleaner because it is bright blue. And when he realizes that she has grabbed that one, he says, why don't I take that? Because he knows as soon as she takes the cover off, she's going to see, fuck, it's the wrong thing and not give it to her.
Yep.
Right. Then he also offers to carry the cup, either to prevent her from noticing or to sort of like make it so that he's doing it. Either way, he knows what's going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And they go upstairs and convince Heather to drink it. She does. And she
dramatically crashes through that table.
Yes. It's an amazing shot.
I know. I'm like, that's one of the most memorable things of that movie from when I saw bits and pieces when I was a kid and my brother was watching it. I'm like, that scene is in my mind forever.
Yeah, and her mouth is bright blue and she just instantly starts convulsing and she croaks.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Veronica was expecting that at all. And so she's naturally shocked.
And JD's like playing pretend to be shocked. Like, oh my God, what are we going to do? I do think that he premeditated the murder, but then the suicide thing he just kind of came up with on the fly. Because they decide to write a suicide note.
Yeah.
Oh, she was reading the bell jar.
Oh, I know.
That's all it takes.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess we should get into the suicide of it all.
We're about to get into the main suicide of it all.
Because that's really what this kicks off, is all of the suicide.
They realize to make it look like a suicide, all you need is a suicide note. And they're like, what would Heather kill herself over?
Oh, and we've already established that Veronica has a talent for doing other people's handwriting.
Right. So this is very easy for her. And they're like, nobody knew the real me, which is very generic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think we all did know the real Heather.
Yes.
Like, she was just a kid.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, is that in an alternate universe, this could very well have been legitimate. Because you really do never know what someone's going through, and bullies get suicidal too.
Right. She was going through a lot. Like, she's got no real friends. She doesn't care that everyone at the school thinks she's a piranha because she's popular.
Yeah.
But, like, that does hurt you. Also, she was sexually assaulted the previous night.
Yeah.
Like, she's going through a lot of pain, and her parents weren't there for her, obviously.
It's the next morning, and her house is empty, so, we can just make assumptions, like, what's her home life like?
Yeah.
I mean, she has a really nice bedroom, though.
Yeah.
You've seen it.
For the 80s.
So beautiful, so coordinated.
I loved the kitchen that was pink and red.
Yes, all the sets.
Little trivia note that I also found is later when they are in Green Heather's kitchen, it's actually the same kitchen. It's dark and it's decorated different.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's especially a cool note because, like, it is a dream sequence.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, could just be, like, Veronica's, like, subconscious memory of repeating that previous. Ooh, I love that. I love this movie. And also the cops. Actually, I don't remember if the cops show up in this scene, but the cops in this town are so dumb.
Oh my God,
Thank
yeah.
you.
That if anyone's like, they're just smoking weed in a car at some point.
Yeah. Also, one of my notes, and this will be after the next suicide, where I just wrote, the cops are fucking idiots.
Right. It's like, they are not going to be helpful. The next scene is actually with the teachers. And here's where the adults weigh in on their thoughts on teen suicide. If they're like trying to negotiate if they should give the kids the day off or not.
Yeah.
Right.
They're like, well, she was really popular, but she wasn't a cheerleader.
Yeah. And the idea that the only one that has a soul there is the one that they're all like, she's the crunchy granola teacher. That's why she cares about life.
So Miss Fleming is the quote unquote hippie. And you're like, oh, finally, someone's going to care about these kids' emotions. But as we see, she doesn't really understand what she's talking about either, as we'll see later in her attempts to sort of capitalize on it.
She seems like the teacher who thinks that she is also a therapist, and she's really excited that she's got a chance to use her quote-unquote therapy skills.
And then literally in the next scene, she passes around Heather's actual suicide note to her classmates. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was a different time to be talking about mental health and suicide. I mean, no duh, but it really comes across in these scenes where the adults are revealed to be just clueless.
Clueless, yes.
I was watching the second half with Brett this morning, and he said, oh, they're like the UN. They don't do anything.
At this point, the green Heather is actually super thrilled that Heather is dead.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Her bulimia is gone.
Yeah, well, because Red Heather was like her main torturer.
Well, I kind of understood that, her excitement to be, there's a shot where they're interviewing all the students about their reactions to the quote unquote suicide. And Green Heather is like, oh, I guess she did know what I was going through after all. And so I kind of took that to mean like, I'm going through this mental illness, and I guess Heather could understand because she was also going through something. And maybe she was excited because she was finding like another reason to connect with her. Like, here's another thing that I have in common with this popular girl. And I kind of saw it as setting the scene for her replacing her.
Or even maybe like, I am actually worthy of being a popular person. Like, I think she probably always felt like a fraud. And maybe she's starting to not feel like that. She's like, oh, look, yeah, popular people have problems too. I am popular. That
is like a big part of the next scene, is that everyone is sort of projecting their own narrative onto this dead person. Like that one guy was like, oh, I'm not boring. She was dissatisfied with her life when she broke up with me. And, everybody's just like goes to the TV stations and talks about how much they loved Heather, even though they hated her in real life. It's like she's become more popular than ever after death, as Veronica and JD are talking about later. And that comes up at the funeral too.
Yeah.
Where they're all like by the casket and everyone's just thinking about themselves.
Yeah.
I found it to be really entertaining, but it also kind of opens the door to a conversation about like the public reaction to suicide. And yeah, like you said, Orion, people put their own narrative on it because like the dead can't defend themselves. So like you can really make it mean whatever you want. And that's so dangerous.
Because at this point, it's safe to say that we're entering suicide fever is starting to take over there.
Suicide contagion is actually the term for it. It's a thing.
Yeah. I feel like they're kind of like playing on that as well when they're pointing out things like, oh, she became a tragic figure then. We're going to dedicate a whole page in the yearbook to her, even though actually everyone hated her. And I feel like that's kind of playing into the idea of people who actually are feeling that way, that they're just like, everyone will miss me when I'm gone. I feel like they're kind of like highlighting that idea that people have.
Yeah, that's what kind of happens as we see later.
Right. You think it's going to be about you and your life, but it's really not. Everyone's in their own life. And people will immediately also move on. Like at the funeral, Yellow Heather's like, hey, Veronica, can you go out on a double date with Kurt and Ram?
Yeah.
The two.
Oh, you mean Green Heather?
Yellow.
Yellow Heather's dead.
No, Yellow.
Oh, wait, no, Leather.
No, oh.
Red Heather's dead.
Never. Okay. This is confusing. Sorry, there's too many Heathers.
Heather McNamara, the Yellow Heather, she's the meek one. Like, she doesn't catch the heat from the main bitch Heather because she's just is like a little follower lamb. And so she's got a date set up with one of the two disgusting jocks. And she's like, Veronica, can you come with me? Because they wanted to do a double date. And Veronica's like, okay, I'll do it as a favor, even though she's going out with JD.
She's like, as long as we don't go out and tip cows in a field. Cut to scene of them tipping a cow in a field.
Cut immediately.
Yes.
Okay, before we move on from the funeral, I just want to write down what that fucking priest was saying. The kids are playing the MTV video game.
Yes! I got that too.
That just kills me every time.
I was like, what's an MTV video game?
Causes suicide. They just need help from that righteous dude.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Who will give you everything you need.
So Veronica ends up on this double, quote-unquote, date. Tipping cows, and there's date rape. Heather is being assaulted. Veronica walks away from her drunk date. JD pops up on his motorcycle and he's like, what are you doing here?
What are you doing here?
And they go, what do they go do?
This is where
they just leave, I think.
Yeah, they leave, and don't they talk about it?
Yeah, so Veronica goes to check in about like the lunchtime poll stuff. I guess she's taking over Heather's duties in absence. Like they immediately just replace her in every way. And the yearbook kids are going to do like a big spread about Heather with her suicide note. And she's like,
gross.
This is weird.
Yeah.
And she also discovers that Kurt and Ram spread a rumor that they had a threesome previous night. Yeah. And it's very slut-shamey to her.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah, she's like, I didn't do that. And this other girl is like, well, the story was pretty detailed.
Turns out that killing the meanest bitch in your life doesn't mean that you've gotten rid of all the bullies.
Yeah, imagine that.
Because bullying is a culture, not a person.
Yeah, and I think she starts to realize that throughout the film, and you can start seeing her spiral once she realizes how far out of her control that it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole movie continues to escalate.
Right, because the immediate escalation is that she and JD decide to plan a prank in retaliation on the jocks. They're going to shoot them with fake bullets, make it look like they committed a gay suicide pact.
He made up those bullets, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
I'm just like, that's not a thing.
And in that scene, they explain it immediately that it is fake because he's like, do you take German? She's like, no, I don't speak German. He goes, these are Ikaluga bullets from World War II. And Ikaluga in German means I'm lying.
Oh,
that completely went over my head.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
I just knew I'm like
such a piece of shit.
Because he describes them as bullets that like paralyze you and cause a little bleeding, but don't kill you. I'm like, what? Veronica, come on.
He's got like stuff to make it look like they died in a gay suicide pact. They write a note about how they couldn't be together. And this is all just because like they called him a homophobic slur at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And they bully people in a homophobic way. He thinks it would be justice if this was their legacy. Like he's seen how people crafted the narrative after Heather's death. And he's like, oh, I can do this in a bad way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I set up this whole thing.
Veronica agrees to do a threesome with them for real this time, and she tells them to meet her in the woods. So she does so. She tells them to strip, and then JD comes out of the woodwork as he does, and he's holding a gun, right?
Yeah, they're each supposed to shoot one because Veronica misses.
One of them gets shot, and then the other one runs off through the woods in his underwear with JD in pursuit. And then while that's happening, Veronica kind of looks down at the body. And I think that's when she realizes, oh, these bullets were real.
We actually killed him. Yes.
Yeah.
Or at least that there's like a strong sense of doubt in her because she does pull the trigger on Kurt when he comes around again. There is reasonable doubt in her. She's like, he doesn't look so good. Because when they're arranging the bodies later with the suicide setup, JD says, remember, he's left-handed. Like, put the gun in the correct hand, which wouldn't matter if it wasn't a real suicide. So he kind of gives himself away that he knows that they're committing murder. But of course, the cops are extremely stoned.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, man, they were fags.
Yeah.
Like, they immediately believe this because they are homophobic.
Uh-huh.
They don't pursue the matter any further.
Can we talk about the mineral water? JD at one point they're setting up the fake gay picnic, and he's like, I brought out some props, and he pulls out the mineral water. He's like, no one will doubt that they're gay when they see that they're drinking mineral water.
I know.
And Veronica kind of scoffs at this, and then later when the cops are going through the scene, one of them picks up the mineral water and he's like,
look at this.
Does this answer your question?
Yeah.
This is Ohio. If you're don't have a brewski in your hand, you might as well be wearing a dress.
Yeah.
Yes.
What they say.
So good. So bad, but so good.
And then they cut to the funeral of Kurt and Ram. And the dad is like, I don't care that my son was gay. He made me proud and I loved him.
I love my dead gay son. Yeah.
It's like, sir, your son wasn't gay, but he was an asshole. Your son was a terrible person. And like, I understand that you miss him, but damn.
Well, and also we get the idea pretty quickly that, you know, like this is a show he can put on at a funeral when I feel like JD accurately says like, so but would you still love him if he had a limp wrist and a pulse?
Veronica's laughing at that. And then she sees what I'm assuming is like either Kurt and Ram's younger sister, and their family is actually crying. Like, this is a human being that they lost.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hitting her how deep this is. Because previously they were decompressing in the car after the murders, and she's like, we killed him. He's like, yeah, you killed him because you wanted to kill them.
Oh my God, yeah, the gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
The gaslighting begins.
It gets worse.
Is that when he lights the cigarette on her burned hand?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that scene was really fucked up. I kind of blocked that from my memory.
Yeah, that was one that I was just like, what the?
Well, when she burns herself immediately following this murder, that's when I was like, oh shit, she's really fucked up.
Yeah, she's realized what's going on and she feels she needs to be punished.
And her immediate reaction is just to inflict this violence on herself. And then JD just casually lights his cigarette on her, I guess.
I think that really, shows kind of like how it's affecting both of them, that like she is getting internally more affected by what's happening and he is a sociopath.
Yeah.
And he also immediately just justifies and explains this away. He's like, look, the world's better without them. You know, you wanted this to happen. Like, this is fine. Yeah.
Whatever you got to tell yourself,
like,
dude.
Yeah. And I also, I paraphrased it here, but yeah, I feel like this is also where she's starting to realize that the bullshit that he's feeding her is actually the opposite when she says they didn't fix anything by getting rid of these terrible people. She said suicide gave them depth and a soul and a brain.
Mm.
Right. It's like not even everyone remembered them as gay. They just immediately kind of, crafted their own narrative.
Yeah, they suddenly pick out like the most positive traits that maybe weren't even there. And they're like, that's how we want to remember them.
Yeah, Veronica's journaling again. She's writing about that exact thing, about how suicide gave everybody a soul. And she has a huge bottle of vodka with her now that when she's journaling at this point. Like, how did she get that vodka? But she's clearly not doing well.
Yeah.
We've all been there, haven't we?
Oh, yeah. That's how this podcast
You've
was
got
born.
the journal and the liquor, and you put your little monocle in and you write about that.
Right.
Man, I forgot my monocle for this episode.
And then she goes to school the next day with sunglasses on because she's super hungover from all that vodka journaling, and walks in on Miss Fleming, the hippie teacher, has a bunch of news cameras in the room, and she wants everyone to hold hands in a solidarity. Don't let suicide get you down. Everybody hold hands. And Veronica's like, oh my God, this is chaos. And JD's like, yeah, it's great because something's happening.
Yeah.
Did you guys see World's Greatest Dad with Robin Williams?
I didn't see that, but I can picture the movie poster, so I knew it's a thing that existed.
It's very similar. He plays a school teacher whose son dies in kind of a freak accident, and he makes it look like a suicide, and the whole school basically rallies to his side, and it becomes this whole anti-suicide movement. That's what I was thinking for this scene, and it kind of shows that this has always been a reaction to these kind of deaths. And like, what does this actually accomplish? How do we feel about it? Let's talk.
Well, it accomplishes nothing because in that scene, a very important person is left out of this whole hand-holding thing. Somebody hides under the table, and it's Martha.
Is this one of my other, just like, for some reason, ultimate favorite parts of this movie is when she's hiding out and JD pops up next to her and just says, greetings and salutations.
Yeah.
Yes. JD sees Martha.
It is, yeah. It is in a person, JD, who has already proven himself to be a sociopath and not a good person in any way, but he does still see everyone as a human.
That's the thing that makes it so difficult with his character, because he does have these redeeming moments.
I have a question.
Please.
Have you ever been in a relationship with somebody like this? Because I have.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, I was going to bring it up. There's a couple scenes that were very triggering for me at that time because that was around the time that I was in this relationship and I didn't really recognize it. And I'm like, why is this hurting me so bad to see this on screen? Because the following, they go back to his dad's house. And in the previous scene with his dad, we didn't talk about his dad, but they also have this weird script, JD and his dad, where like he's sort of like the father and the father is the son, and it's kind of this like backwards script thing because they clearly cannot communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And his dad seems very appearance focused and like he's doing everything right. I noted that he like moseys on the treadmill for a minute and a half, but I feel like that's like an appearance thing. Just like, yes, look at me. I work out every day and I do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his dad has like this demolition company, basically. They go around and blow stuff up around. So JD's been like moved from school to school all across the states. And he says the last time he saw his mom was waving out a library window at Texas. And in this scene, they learned that JD's mom committed suicide by walking into a building right before his dad blew it up, which is extremely disturbing.
Yeah.
Like, of course, JD's a little bit fucked up from that.
Mm-hmm. It's really dark.
And now he's obsessed with explosives as well.
That will come into play later.
Yeah. He tells Veronica about, how his mom committed suicide. And he hears the song Teen Suicide by Big Fun playing on the radio. It's the most popular song with the most popular band, which is very funny. He's like, it's our song.
Oh my God.
He turns it up. Veronica's annoyed. He shoots the radio with his gun. And Veronica's like, that's it. We're breaking up. And she starts to leave. And I'm so glad that she said that. Like, she has such a strong willpower to say no.
Yeah, it's refreshing.
Yeah, to say, like, no, I don't like this. You're making me uncomfortable, and I'm leaving. Like, I don't care what we've been through, what you think of me. This is not working. I'm going to leave.
But then you also see that he keeps coming back and somehow getting her back. And as a viewer, you're like, Veronica, what are you doing? Like, you cannot be this dumb to keep going back to him. But as you know, Orion, when you're in that situation, it's a lot more complex.
No, and she's not dumb at all.
Yeah, that's the point.
He is very manipulative, but she also doesn't take the bait.
No, she's learned how to make him think that he's getting to her. I think she gets very smart at this point.
Because in that scene, she breaks up with him and he kind of like grabs her and kisses her and tries to, he assaults her essentially. And she like pushes him off and gets away. And that's something that I wish that I had been able to do at certain points of my life. I think that if I were in Veronica's place there, I would not have broken up with JD because I wouldn't want to hurt his feelings, especially someone who's like that deeply fucked up and just revealed something like very traumatizing, like the thing about his mom. He didn't reveal that to be vulnerable. He revealed that to get sympathy and to lock her in and say, I'm being vulnerable with you. Now you have to comfort me and be with me because you're the only one who knows that. And you're the only one who understands me. And girls and guys, anybody, you don't owe somebody something just because they've been vulnerable with you about something hurtful. That's not your problem. You do not have to take care of somebody just because they reveal to you their trauma.
Yes.
Like, you are also allowed to have trauma and boundaries and say no and say, this is not good for me. You need to get help somewhere else. I'm not going to help you with this anymore. Don't touch my body. Leave me alone.
Like you said, it's not actually vulnerability. It's manipulation.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you guys think sometimes when you're being vulnerable with people that it's easy to convince yourself that you are being a little manipulative?
I think because I've been in that situation where someone's vulnerability was used to manipulate me, I constantly feel now, like, am I being manipulative if I reveal this?
Yes, I am paranoid that I am being manipulative.
Yeah, and again, it comes with like valuing other people's feelings more than our own. Like, all the benefit that would come with being vulnerable with someone is canceled out by like the fear that you will make them uncomfortable or trigger them or, I don't know, receive attention, God forbid. But yeah, that's such a good point to make, Orion. And even now, however many years later, it's just as needed as ever for people to hear that, which is like the sad part of all this.
This is a very like disturbing and like I think very deep and important scene. Mm-hmm. But after this, Veronica's life gets better because she starts hanging out with Betty Finn, her friend from childhood, who wasn't cool enough to hang out with the Heathers.
Ooh.
But I'm like, it's just so nice to have her be at her house with this old friend, and they just are normal. Like, oh God, having normal friends is so important.
But that scene kind of gave me chills too, because there is the point where, you know, this girl that never like got the chance to be popular like Veronica, she's happy to be hanging out with her old friend, but it seems like she's really aware of reality when she points out, like, I don't exactly know how croquet is played, but when she tells her, you know, like, you're going to take the shots, why don't you knock me out?
She's like, nice guys finish last.
That is like a croquet rule. You can take a benefit for yourself or you can screw your opponent.
Oh, okay. The scene makes more sense now.
So yeah, that's what she's basically saying. Like, no, don't take the personal advantage. Screw me over.
Fuck.
And Veronica says, that's not my style. Like, she genuinely wants to have a nice game with her. But then Betty Finn convinces her to take the advantage for herself. And she does. And then prophetically, the other Heathers show up and Betty Finn leaves because she understands this is not a world that she's allowed into.
I've been that person that has left of my own accord because I didn't feel like I belonged.
Yep, me too.
Oh, wait. So before this, JD has pictures of Martha and the Green Heather hanging out from when they were kids. And he uses this to blackmail the Green Heather into sort of stepping into Heather's role of power. He says, convinces her that she's going to be the new leader of Westerberg and that she's going to owe him a favor, or he's going to show these pictures of her and Martha around the school.
Yeah, Green Heather is full on the popularity train. Another quote was, I cut off Red Heather's head and Green Heather popped up in its place.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the moment that I was really disappointed because up till now I had kind of empathized with Green Heather because of the whole bulimia thing, and I was hoping for redemption, but those hopes were quickly dashed.
But I still empathize with her in a really big way because she was only the victim of the person that she was aspiring to become because she was so thirsty for that role. And then when she does this, she still really isn't getting what she wants because being a bully is miserable. It's just as much as being a victim. And speaking of victim, this is where Martha Dunstock attempts to kill herself for real. She tapes a suicide note to her chest and she walks into traffic.
Yeah.
What's fucked up about this is that, like, when someone kills themselves, everyone goes, like, oh my god, they were this and that, Kurt and Ram were kind, Heather was popular. When Martha tries to kill herself but fails, they dog on her. They make fun of her for it so hard. They call her a geek. It's so fucked up. Like, this wasn't a fake murder-suicide. This girl is actually suffering and needs help, and that is not taken seriously. In fact, Green Heather comes to Veronica's house and says this, and Veronica slaps her in the face,
yes,
which is great.
Which I loved.
Yeah.
Okay, I have this written down. So Veronica and Green Heather are listening to the radio. They're listening to their favorite radio show. And who calls in for advice but a poorly disguised Yellow Heather is calling in with her troubles. And I just wrote down, like, that's so pathetic to call into a podcast with your problems. Who would ever do that?
I wrote down, she knows we listen to this show.
I know.
I love that.
It's so relevant. I hate it. But again, they're not really sympathizing or empathizing with her. They're just mocking her. Another attempt at vulnerability where you could actually change things, and they're, completely belittling it.
Yeah, like, how dare you have feelings? Ew, you're letting people know that you have feelings? Gross.
Right. So the next day at school, Green Heather's told everybody that Yellow Heather, I guess, is a human being with feelings.
Yeah.
That's so embarrassing. And Heather, like, gets up in the middle of class and runs to the bathroom. And nobody cares except for Veronica, who chases her down and finds her trying to take a bottle of pills. I don't know how premeditated this was, or if she just had a bunch of pills for whatever reason.
I mean, if it was just like aspirin or something, I can see having that at school.
Well, you have to remember that these are kids.
Yeah, because there's a child-proof cap on it.
Yeah, they don't know what they're dealing with. These are kids, and they're joking about suicide, but then, like, it's happening, and just seeing the image of this teenage girl downing pills in the bathroom kind of made me realize the gravity of the situation. And obviously Veronica recognized it too, because she did something about it. And that was kind of validating to me as a viewer.
Yeah, this is the point where she says, don't throw your life away to become a statistic or something like that.
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
She also says, if you were happy every day of your life, you wouldn't be a human being, you'd be a game show host.
Call back. Sorry, that was our first tagline we tried.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad. Also in this scene, Veronica talks Heather down from suicide and comforts her. And what I love is that she's just like, let's just knock off of school and go buy some shoes or something.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes that is what you need. When you're having a really bad day and it's like, I don't want to be alive anymore, you can leave and do something different and fun. And in the same way that JD earlier kind of rescued Veronica from her life in a really dramatic way, Veronica's doing that for other people in a really healthy way. Also at this time, JD approaches Green Heather and tells her that for the favor that he asked her, get everybody to sign this petition to get the band Big Fun, their hit Teenage Suicide, get them to play at prom, have everyone in the school sign this petition that he's made. And she does by lying to everybody about what the petition's about.
Mm-hmm.
Veronica will not sign the petition. She still says no in a very powerful way. He was obviously lying to her.
Yeah.
So Veronica's like, no, I'm not going to sign this petition. And JD approaches her after this confrontation and is like, do you want to kill Heather? You want to take me back because you're so frustrated? Like, but I've put you in this position where you have an enemy again that I can now, take advantage of. And she still says no. She says, get out of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And basically then he starts threatening to kill her. He goes to her parents and tells her that she's thinking of committing suicide. And that's a very scary thing. He also puts a doll on a noose in her room, gives her a suicide note in her handwriting, basically saying, I can kill you and make it look like you killed yourself because I've done it before.
Yeah, like, I don't need your help to fake a suicide. I can fake yours all on my own.
Very scary.
Very scary.
So she takes a nap, which is what I would do probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we have the dream sequence.
Yes. So she has a dream that he comes through her window and they go to Heather's house and he takes a knife and goes and kills her. And she's like, well, you can't kill her if you don't have my suicide note. And he says, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You've seen. This is JD in the dream, but it's true in real life.
Yeah.
He's like, nobody cares. Like, they'll just believe any reason. And he just writes, life sucks.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's a good enough suicide note. They're going to believe me. I've got a marked up copy of her copy of Moby Dick. They'll believe that.
And yeah, based on like what we've seen in this movie so far, yeah, that's all it takes.
So yeah, she wakes up and realizes she's got to stop JD because he's going to either kill her or a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Which she's correct about. Yeah, he crawls through her window and she has pretended to hang herself from the ceiling. And he's actually shocked by this. He's like, fuck, I didn't think you were going to do that. You got me. He came up there with a gun to kill her or to, kidnap her away.
And then he proceeds to tell his whole plan to her dead body.
Yeah, he reveals that the petition is actually a suicide note for the whole school because he's like, why stop at one murder at a time? If they'll believe individual teens killing themselves, then it's going to work for the whole school, which I'm just like, this is a dumbass plan.
Yeah.
This is so stupid. You're not going to get away with that.
He's ambitious, at least.
And unstable.
Yeah, he runs off to go enact this plan. Veronica's mom comes in, and she's shocked to see Veronica hanging from the ceiling. Because previously, oh man, we skipped the scene where her parents finally have a real conversation with her about the stuff that's been going on at school. And they are so dismissive and they do not take the feelings of teenagers seriously at all. So Veronica has no help at home. That's why she doesn't tell them about this stuff with JD's because she cannot trust her parents to do this. All adults suck, essentially.
Yeah.
Anyway, she goes to school the next day looking for JD. He just brings a bomb to school.
Casual.
He's setting up these bombs in the gym and in the boiler room under the gym. And that's where Veronica, I think, where did she get that gun? I think he left the gun in her bedroom.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to where she got it.
She has a gun somehow. And there's a rally that's going to take place above the boiler room, and that's why JD has chosen that location.
Right. So he's just going to blow up the boiler room, and then the entire gym will go up, killing everybody. And the scene that follows is very intense and very engaging, where they fight in the boiler room. Upstairs, like there's a whole pep rally going on, so it's not like Veronica can't scream, she can't call the cops or anything because there's too much noise.
Yeah, at one point she fires the gun and no one hears.
Also, there's like packs of thermals strapped under the bleachers, and there's this stoner girl just like smoking up, like lighting up right under it, and she doesn't see, which is really funny. Yeah, there's just a lot to watch, and this movie is like so well edited. I feel like I don't see stuff like this engaging go through. But yeah, they're scuffling over the bomb. She wants him to turn it off. He's saying all this bullshit to her. He tries to assault her again while they fight.
So much assaulting in this movie.
But like ultimately, she shoots him.
Yeah.
She just straight up does it.
She shoots off his middle finger. I love that.
She says, turn off the goddamn bomb, asshole. And he's middle fingers her and she just shoots it right off.
Yeah.
It's very satisfying. Then she does stop the bomb and she shoots him again. And it seems like he's died. So she just walks out of the school, which is fair,
She's looking pretty rough.
And he follows her out with the bomb strapped to himself. Like now he's got the bomb strapped to himself and he walks out and they have a brief conversation and he blows himself up.
Well, yeah, because he basically wants to know if she's going to give him any reason not to do it at that point. Because he's like, what are you going to do? And she just steps back and pulls out a cigarette. Like, I'm just going to watch the show.
I don't know how I felt about this, y'all. I feel like they could have either showed consequences of what he did or showed some way that he was in treatment or being rehabilitated or something, or even in prison. He could have gone to jail. And I don't know. I feel like this is what happens in real life so many times with these school shooters. They just they believe that they're beyond hope because they've done this thing and so they have to die. Like you see that a lot. And I don't, it's not very, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
Yeah. First of all, I think, as Orion pointed out in the beginning, we hadn't seen that all this time at the time this movie came out. Because there hadn't been all these publicized school shootings, and we hadn't talked about like, oh, their psyche, and then they end it by offing themselves. So it wasn't a thing that we'd seen done to death. And I also don't think that JD had any redemption in him. I mean, if you want to send him to jail, fine. I don't think I would have felt like it was a cheap shot if they were like, we rehabilitated him. I'm like, no.
That's a whole other podcast we could do.
Yeah.
Can I offer that I think of course JD could have been rehabilitated. He could have been stopped at any point before this because he is also a child.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I was so disturbed, I think.
He was failed at so many points in this movie, but also because he made those choices and he just kept going further and nobody stopped him. And I think that Veronica went in there with the mission to stop him from blowing up the school, which she did.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, she couldn't stop him from blowing up himself. This movie's not about JD, it's about Veronica.
Yeah.
And it was Veronica stepping back and realizing no, I am not going to participate with this for you. Sometimes you can't save people. She was trying to save him the whole time and you can't.
That's a very good point.
He was hurting her. You can help people. You can offer them the help that you can give them. You can give them a way out. But if somebody's really going to do something, sometimes all you can do is stand there and say nothing at the end of it. She didn't owe him anything beyond that. And there was nothing she could do. And that's extremely painful and hard to do. But that was the lesson that she did at the end of the day. That was the final boundary, that no. And I don't know. I find that very powerful. As sad as it is, that is how it ends. That's how he chose to end it, and you can't change people's choices.
You literally can't keep people from blowing up their own lives sometimes.
Although this is the only legitimate suicide in the entire movie.
Yeah, I think that was closer maybe to the original point that I was trying to make because, I don't know, I feel like how it came off sounded like I was saying that I was heartless. And what I really was thinking is if it had ended in a way like Christina had floated where, he's getting help for this and stuff like that, if they'd made the movie that way, then that is sort of pandering to what we as people want. That's going to make audiences feel better. Oh, good. We know that, someone got help, where it's kind of it doesn't necessarily happen that way. So it's just kind of yeah.
We want a neat little positive bow.
A neat little positive bow, yes.
No, you guys have done a really good job making me see the other side of this, which symbolically, it's hugely powerful and it's not comfortable.
Yeah, it's unsettling.
Yeah, it's unsettling. That's what I'm struggling with, I think.
Yeah.
But maybe that means the movie is doing its job.
And also the scene after that where she goes back inside and it's not oh, well, JD's dead, so all the villainy in the world is over, problem solved. Bullying was a guy. She confronts the green heather and she takes away that red heather scrunchie and she's like, I'm the new sheriff in town, bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And then she does the best thing, which is to approach Martha, who's survived the suicide. And she's looking banged up. She's in a mobility scooter. Man, Martha needs a break. And what Veronica does is go and say, hey, I'm not going to prom. Let's watch a movie together instead. Do you want to do that? She literally just reaches out as a kind person and a friend. Because the way that you fix society isn't the way that JD was doing it by killing people, pitting them against each other and believing everything's hopeless. It's literally just reaching out to the most vulnerable people and being kind.
And I liked that too, because I felt like she did that in a very real way. It didn't suddenly I'm going to turn your life around. It's just kind of hey, do you want to watch a movie with me?
That's all it takes sometimes. It's just a simple gesture like that can change someone's life.
Yeah, we're equals. We're people. We're kids.
Yeah, they're literally children.
Yeah.
And we are too in some ways. We have to remind ourselves, we're watching this as adults and we think we have it all figured out, but like movies like this have a lot to teach us about our own attitudes towards this stuff and like what we can actually do to make a difference.
Yeah. I said something recently to you earlier last week that was just like a thought that came to me when we were talking. And it was that people are more vulnerable with each other and they connect better in the presence of art. I've been thinking about that like all week and noticing that that does come up a lot. Like when you share like a piece of art, even like a surreal kind of weird, not entirely realistic piece of art like Heather's sometimes connects people better because we all see the world through our own like weird lens. We don't see object reality as it objectively is. Everybody interprets it differently. And so everybody interprets like movies differently and art differently. And then we all like through that, we find the things that we actually share. So like nobody's got Veronica's exact story, but we all relate to that in different ways that we've been mean and ways that we've been manipulated and ways that we've been kind and brave and that we've like defined our own values and boundaries in different ways. I mean, I hope that for everybody that they can kind of find themselves in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also you're going to change. Like I see at the end of this movie, the teenagers shifting into their new roles and figuring out life. And their problems aren't over, but you see them trying to just be different. And I don't know, I feel like I am a teenager in that area. Sometimes I think that my whole path is set out for me and I have to act a certain way because people expect me to, even though I'm 31 years old. And then watching this movie just kind of reminded me, like we're all just clueless teenagers in some way. I don't know. Did y'all feel similar feelings?
The last thing that I have written down, I want to say it came in poor taste in the movie from, I think, the priest in Green Heather's dream sequence suicide, like her fake funeral, where he says, whether to kill yourself or not is one of the most important decisions a teenager can make.
I wrote that down too.
Yeah, because it's like, I remember it sounded really trite and I thought that was a terrible thing to say, but it's kind of like, it's sort of an overarching theme that kind of makes sense in a way when you think of this movie as a whole.
It makes me think that like watching these teens, people are like, oh, it's crazy that someone would be this mean, but like, yeah, kids are like that. But you know who else is like that? Adults. Adults are so insensitive and mean, and they just don't need to be. It's like, it's just as silly as if we were in high school. Like workplace bullying, that's a thing. Like little cliques, like Heather's. Every workplace, I think, has like a clique like that.
Oh, for sure.
Like the popular people and the not popular people. And it's so weird.
She has a conversation with her mom. She's complaining about being a teenager, I think. And her mom is basically like, well, adults are like this too. I hate to break it to you, but this is what it is to be a human being. And then she's like, well, I picked the wrong time to be a human being.
Yeah.
Her mom just doesn't question the premise that people are cruel and unnecessarily mean to each other. And Veronica, in her childlike innocence, in a way, is like, why does it have to be like that? Veronica's very much like, why can't we just be nice?
Well, yeah, and she realizes by the end of the movie, I can just be nice.
Yeah, the way to get people to start being nice is to just do it.
Yeah.
Imagine if JD had just chosen to be a nice person instead of bombs and guns.
Imagine if JD had been in therapy.
Oh my God, he needed therapy.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, I would say totally watch this movie if you haven't seen it. It might cause a lot of strong feelings in you, but I say lean into it and maybe you'll learn something about yourself and society.
I feel like as long as you're going in knowing like it's a dark comedy, it's a satire, don't think like you're going to find role models, except maybe Veronica.
Yeah, like even role models are complicated, but like it's almost like so absurd that it kind of like takes the power away. And like the mental health conversation can go a lot of ways for everyone individually as well. But I think overall, as a mentally ill and suicidal teenager, this did help me to see, not that my problems were small, because like in this, I think this movie takes teenage problems very seriously. Like kids literally die in a murderous, absurd way. But like it is very serious. But at the end of the day, like it shows you that the world is bigger than that. And that there sort of is a place in the world for those feelings and for that reality to exist for you. And that like Also, yeah, kindness is important, and mean people are being stupid. And there's more to this world than the pain you're going through right now, but that you still deserve help for it.
Totally.
Yeah. Also, today is Thanksgiving.
It is.
Yeah, can we talk about that?
Happy Podsgiving. And I hope that we're all going to be with our chosen families wherever we feel comfortable and happy today.
I already am.
I appropriately was gazing at Pico when you said that.
No, this is really lovely to hang out with y'all today of all days. I've been really struggling with depression today, and I really appreciate this. This has definitely been like the high point of my day.
I'm very happy to be doing this instead of being with my other family gatherings. And,
anytime.
That's fine.
Yeah. Orion, if people want to reach out to you, how can they do that? Do you want to give your Instagram?
I'll give you my personal mailing address if I know you. But I'm Instagram at Roboticus. And yeah, that's pretty much all I do. And I'm just another loyal listener.
Yeah, I feel like you're more than a listener at this point. We'll have you back again at some point for a non-movie review.
While I was watching this, I jotted down some potential movies that we could do in the future.
We'll be very depressed in the future, so we're going to have more movie reviews.
Yeah.
I actually got a motor if I'm going to make it to this party.
Perfect timing. Well,
Yes.
well, Ryan, thank you so much. We love you.
I love you too. Okay, bye.
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 Aw. Well, the only thing left now is for us to tell people how they can get in touch with us and share your thoughts on this movie and any other thoughts you might have about anything, really. Do you want to take us out, Lauren?
Is that my cue?
Yes, that's your cue. Please, for the love of God, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
You sounded like Winona Ryder at the end of Heathers.
That's kind of how I feel right now.
I just got back from hell.
Oh, you can find us at Pickles and Vodka Podcast on Instagram. You can email us your thoughts and prayers. Just kidding.
We need them.
Yes. At Pickles and Vodka Podcast at gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Pickles and Vodka, a mental health podcast. We have personal Instagrams if you would like to talk to us individually, Xtina Jumper or Pico Suave, Picosauve. It is my dog.
Yes, it is.
We haven't mentioned that in a while. So.
Yeah, we need to remind people.
Right.
And that's the podcast for this week. We hope you enjoyed. We'll be back next week. Help us out with our 5-year anniversary episode by contacting us at one of the methods Lauren just described. And maybe we'll share your stories on our special episode.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got.
All right.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.